And it is Saturday, July 20th, 2024, which must mean it's the DMZ America podcast with me, editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
And I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right. And happy anniversary to all my fellow space geeks. Today's the anniversary of the first human beings walking on the moon. Where were you, Ted? Were you? I'm assuming you were a kid in Ohio.
I was just shy of 6 years old in Ohio. I was living in Kettering, Ohio, not far from the stomping grounds of possible future Vice President J.D. Vance, who grew up
Well, that's Appalachia, right?
From me. Yeah, that's Appalachia. Like I'm from Brittany. His grandparents are from Appalachia, from Eastern Kentucky, and I know he went there to visit, as I went to Brittany to visit. But he grew up in Middletown, Ohio, which is not in any way, shape, or form Appalachia. Ohio does have a swath of Appalachia in the southeastern part of the state, in coal country, but Middletown's the southwestern part of the state. It's a pretty decent sized state, and that's the Rust Belt. That's steel. That's big steel factories. That is GE. It's things like that. It's not. It's just north of Cincinnati. It's halfway between Cincinnati and Dayton. That's why it's called Middletown.
And yeah, it's just and currently now what we like to call a meth-based economy.
Yes, totally. Yeah, he has that stuff right, for sure.
Well, except if I could just jump in real quick, and we'll do the politics, but because I do want to ask where you were for the moon landing, but real quick, Vance's acceptance speech at the Republican convention mentioned how his mother was a victim of immigration and those nasty brown people bringing the drugs over the border. Ted, she was a nurse who stole drugs, had nothing to do with immigration at all. I mean, it's that kind of stuff to villainize people is, anyway, that just,
you are right about that. Totally. Yeah. So we're at the moon landing. So
you were just shy of 6 years old. Do you remember?
It's funny. It's very funny because I really do have memories of stuff that happened even before, like the year before, like the assassinations and the rioting and all that. And the Ted offensive. I don't remember LBJ stepping down, but I was 5. But I do have a memory going back to like 4, but I don't remember the moon landing. I don't remember where I was. It's very strange because my father did take me to a few of the Apollo launches after 11.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I got to stand in mission control. In the back of the room, and I was a little kid. I was a kid.
Don't touch anything.
Those 4 guys who I burned up on the launch pad that one time. My bad.
Well, it was I thought it was 3. It was 4 actually. Was one just burned to a crisp? Wow. This is breaking news here on DMZ America podcast. The conspiracies just keep coming. But so where were you? I mean, so I'm assuming you like most of us. I was on the West Coast, so it was still daytime. I was in San Diego,
East Coast,
and I was 10. And yeah, so it was still daytime there, but in Ohio, it would have in the Eastern time zone, it would have been nighttime. And when they because I think they went out at 7 p.m. on Houston time, which would have been 8 p.m. your time.
Okay, so I would have probably been put to sleep.
I think they would have let you stay up to watch that, wouldn't they?
Well, it was my mom. I grew up with a single mom, much like J.D. Vance, except his single mom like basically ditched him. So yeah, no, my dad wasn't around. It was my parents were divorced. I lived with my mom. So
I think that would have been something you would have watched, though. I mean, your mom would have had you watch. It's just the historic nature.
She certainly had me watch lots of other stuff, and I spent the entire summer of this was later. I was 11. The summer of 1974, watching the Watergate hearings. All day long because
Did you really?
I really did.
So did I.
And I was like, and it was kind of like preempting baseball, and I was a huge baseball fan, Cincinnati Reds fan at the time, but it would be back and forth between like the playoffs and like all that stuff. So
how did you not get put on the strictly adhered to do not date list, which apparently I was put on because I did things like run home to watch the hearings?
I was on the do not date list, but fortunately, the I worked on the school paper, and there was this cute girl on the school newspaper staff who, for some reason, decided to take pity upon me and date me. uh, and who was also really, really hot. I mean, it's like everyone's like, wait, she's like the hottest girl in the school, and she's dating Ted Rall. Like, what's with that? Nobody understood, least of all me. But it was like, okay,
Aw,
yeah,
I'm sure you were cute.
yeah, not really. No, I mean,
Worthy of a pity date. I mean, come on.
yeah, I was certainly thin.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. You look back on pictures of yourself way back in the day, and you think, and back then you thought, oh, I'm so fat. I thought I was fat. And I look at these pictures, I go, this guy had 4% body fat. I mean, this is a skinny,
Oh,
slender, healthy.
You could see no, I mean, it was a problem. I mean,
Really?
Child Protective Services like thought I was being malnourished, and based on they used to weigh us in gym class, and I was coming in underweight. So,
How much may I ask how much?
Yeah, I remember, I don't remember.
Were you as tall as you are now?
No. So in 7th grade, I remember I was in the 95-pound weight class in wrestling. But I was short. I only got tall the summer between 9th and 10th grade. And it was suddenly like, literally, when they talk about growing pains, like your bones hurt and stuff.
Yeah.
I grew, I think, about 8 inches in like 4 months. And it was like, suddenly I went from being one of the shortest kids in the class to one of the tallest kids in the class. And it was just like, oh, yeah, man, I
could literally hear it.
Awkward,
And painful.
Yeah. I remember going through 3 or 4 pairs of shoes in that summer, and I didn't get to wear them out. The old Converse All Stars, I didn't wear them out. Normally, I always wore them out so that the bottom was.
Oh yeah.
But like these never got a chance. It was like,
sorry, a single mom must have loved paying for that.
Oh, she was psyched. Yeah, well, she was making that sweet first year public school salary where the money is the dollars are just raining in.
Oh yeah,
$500 a year she was making. Woohoo!
Wow, geez.
Yeah,
your mom was very, very cool. I liked your mom a lot. She was. And so, yeah, like I said, I was in San Diego. The moon, I still get chills watching the video because I can remember my family shutting up and being functional for,
that period. It was all on a soundstage in Hollywood, that it was all fake.
Oh my God. I have a t-shirt, one of my favorite t-shirts of all time. This asshole who was doing a documentary, I'm doing air quotes here, about how the moon landing was fake. And he caught up with Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin has no fucks to give, right? He walked on the moon. There are literally,
as the Onion said, man walks on the fucking moon.
Holy fucking shit. Yeah, which was really if I had that's
the proper headline.
When I was 10. But he cornered Buzz Aldrin, and Buzz starts like grilling Buzz Aldrin. Well, what about this and all this other weird like conspiracy stuff? Buzz Aldrin turns around and punches him in the face.
Good.
And Buzz at the time was in his 60s, maybe closing in on 70. And so I have a t-shirt that says Buzz Aldrin still kicks ass. And on the back, it says legalize the right to punch the stupid. I'm afraid in a number of instances I'd be a victim of that, but
it is when you think about it, when you consider the distances and the precision that's involved, that's required, and the technology that they had at the time, how difficult. I mean, just think about how hard it is for us, for like a country, a nation state today with our current technology to successfully land and operate a rover or a probe into that far, and to have it land on Mars and have it like not fuck up or fall over or something.
Don't forget, what was it, 6 months ago we had a lander, 10 months ago we had a lander on the moon and it tipped over.
Yeah, exactly. And so
that's 2024,
right? And so like when you think about like back then, like high tech, like a lot of data was stored on like cassette tapes and reel-to-reels, and punch cards. Well, data wasn't stored on punch cards, but the programs were stored on punch cards. It's like when you just think how primitive that technology was and what was involved, it's kind of tempting to see why the conspiracy theorists might say we weren't capable of landing on the moon. It was just too hard. You could see why they would think that.
Yes, but human beings are clever little monkeys, and we figured it out. I mean, there's so much evidence
Also,
that
we
we
killed a
were
lot
there.
of people getting there too. And well, I mean, as a race, right? Like there was the guys who burned up on the launch pad. There was the
Okay,
Apollo 13 guys could have died. The
didn't.
okay, there was the dog, the Soviet dog. There were some monkeys.
Oh yeah, don't forget the Soviets. The Soviets had some real ugly stuff that we didn't learn about till much later. Well, we knew because of our intelligence, we knew that there was a launch, and the guy didn't come back.
Right.
Though he did, and they have. Well, you've heard that the video. You were at the Cosmonaut Museum in Moscow. You know this now. The
That's
guy
right.
who burnt up on re-entry.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
That's
Oh,
not
so I
good.
was. So there were some sacrifices,
And don't
no
forget,
doubt.
even later, right? We lost 2 space shuttles. I mean,
Oh
this
my
shit
God.
is dangerous.
Both of those were hubris. Both of those, don't get me started. That's my hatred of government. That's what we were talking about just before we started recording this, folks, about the cheapness. Don't cheap out. That we're talking about the Microsoft glitch that downed America, the world yesterday. Don't cheap out on this because, I mean, but okay, explain to me the space shuttle that burnt up on reentry. They launch, they see a piece of foam the size of a car
Hmm.
hit the wing
Hmm.
at 500 miles an hour.
Hmm.
Okay, this wasn't like it didn't drop and just, it was 500 miles an hour and hit the wing.
Hmm.
Um, and and NASA got so complacent and got rid of so many of the risk management people that they went, well, is this a danger? Nah. Should we go to the space station? Because the ISS was operational then. Should we go to the space station? At the very least, have them take a,
Do a
should,
spacewalk and take a look.
yeah,
Check it
no,
out.
nah, what's the worst that can happen? And if you
Right.
listen to the video and watch the control as it was happening, it's, they're going, the astronauts, it went like that. So luckily they did not suffer, but there was about 15 seconds prior to the shuttle breaking up where they're going, our heat indicators on the left wing are, off the chart. What's going on? NASA, control, can you tell us? And they go,
Mm.
we're looking at that right now. and then,
Well,
and then,
I'm sure they did burn up. I mean, I'm sure like it wasn't like a blink of an eye, right? It wasn't like
oh
decapitated.
yeah, no, it was, the thing broke up into a bazillion pieces. You're 2.5 miles above
Yeah.
above the surface of the
Yeah.
earth. There's no oxygen.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
It's near the temperature is basically barely above absolute zero.
it's bad. So yeah, you would die like within seconds. And so I guess there would have been anyway. Happier thoughts are the moon landers that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, who came, and of course Michael Collins up in the command module, and all three of them came back a-okay. Well, except Michael Collins had grown a mustache, which looked really stupid, but
And eventually Neil Armstrong severed a finger, right? Like
he
while
did. He
working
was,
on
oh
his
my God,
fence.
think of, no, off his tractor. He had a farm. He was
Yeah, in
teaching at a
Ohio.
small college in Ohio,
Hmm.
and he was jumping off his tractor, and his wedding ring got caught, ring finger got caught
Fucking
on the
razor
mirror
wire.
as he was jumping. And I didn't know that little amount of weight and torque could do this, but he's jumping off, ring gets caught, and his hand just, and the finger just goes, you know, and
And that's
off
the
it
risk.
goes.
That's the danger of monogamy.
Well, he learned it because if you remember, weirdly, he got divorced a year later
See?
after like 38 years of marriage. I'm sorry, at that point, I don't understand divorce at all, Ted, but at that point, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, why not just coast into the grave? Like just ease on in.
Obviously, you've reached some level of equanimity. Obviously, you've reached some level of peace with each other, or a truce at least. I don't
Or
understand.
maybe it was just a fucking 40. More likely, it was probably good for a long time until it wasn't. And then life is, with mortality looming, it was like, well, do I want to spend the last 2 years I have left with this person who I am not that into anymore?
Yeah, I suppose. But, he was a very when Neil Armstrong came back to Earth, he had a very quiet life, very quiet.
Yeah,
He'd show up occasionally to NASA things for
sure.
anniversary things, but for the most part, you couldn't get interviews with him. You couldn't talk to him. He was just happy teaching this course,
Yeah, I think I
living
don't
in the
remember if
small
he was at
town.
Xavier or University of Cincinnati. One of
No, it
those
was Xavier.
might have been
Xavier.
Xavier
I thought
Catholic.
it was no, it wasn't Xavier. And I don't think it was University of Cincinnati either. But anyway, I guess we could look it up, but that would
Yes,
mean,
it doesn't really
doing the actual work. And we've been lollygagging long enough, my friend. We have two things to talk about here on the DMZ America podcast, which they are related because they're both political. First and foremost, of course, was the Republican convention ended on Thursday night with a 90-minute plus speech by Donald Trump. So boring, even a geek like Scott could not watch all of it. I was just like,
so boring that even a geek like Ted could not watch all of it.
oh, and if you watch the
But
audience, he lost the audience.
in that sense, though, most people really only watch the beginning of
Yes, of
like this.
course.
It's much like the debate. If Biden had come out strong in the first
Yes.
minutes of the debate, people would have tuned away, and he wouldn't be in crisis now. People were watching the beginning of Trump's speech. The beginning was great. He did a great job,
I
and
thought it was a little maudlin, didn't
went
you?
off the rails later.
Yeah, I thought the talking about the assassination attempt and all that. I mean, I understand, and he's a showman. He did a good job on that. What's that?
Consummate. I mean, I think,
and so,
but he was. I'll tell you what I always find dumb as shit in a really American way is that God was looking out for me thing. It's like, I tell you what, so if God's plan is, Ted, do a rally, give a talk, and God's plan is, I'm going to shoot off your ear and kill a firefighter and almost kill two more people. Tell you what, God, I'm good. I don't need your plan. How about my plan is I don't give the speech, or I give the speech and nobody shoots my ear off, and the firefighter gets to go home to his wife and kids. How about that? How about that? How about that plan? Like, that's not a great plan. It's like the people who are like, oh, God saved. I lost everything in the tornado, but God was looking out for me. No, God took away all your shit. So I mean, it's so dumb. It's unbelievable. It's like, it's just a random occurrence. I mean, a dude was shooting at him. He was far enough away not to have great aim. The end. You moved at the last second. That's what happened. That's why you're still alive.
well, but don't forget who his
and the firefighter and the two other people just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's all.
don't forget who his base is, though, and that's the evangelicals who feel, and they're Calvinist in their theology in many ways, that God is, everything on earth is directed by God, which I do not believe as a Catholic. That we are imbued with free will, for instance, and this, yeah, I agree, but wearing the people in the audience wearing the bandage, I mean, on their ears to show, you know,
That's all. It's kind of awesome, but you've been to political conventions, and there's the crazy hats with made out of the big donkey or the big
and I thought they were wearing years, and even as a child, although I did not know the meaning of the word, I assumed they were wearing those hats ironically, like, oh, look, this is goofy. It's so funny. No, Ted and I have both. Ted has actually been a delegate. I've never been a delegate because I've, worked in journalism for all those years, but covering these things, these people are true believers in batshit crazy.
True.
Covering the Republican convention 1996 in San Diego, which nominated Bob Dole. Bob Dole delegates were bananas. They were all in with Bob Dole. And it's just like, this is a Bob Dole delegate. You realize it's Bob Dole. I mean, how enthusiastic can you be?
Right.
It was, it really is astounding to go to these things. For those of you who listen to this podcast and don't attend these things, and you look at, for instance, the MAGA rallies, and you go, how can people be that crazy? Go to a political camp, a major political party convention. So I think, and this is where Ted and I, before we came out, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a progressive early, and she was telling me how the GOP convention was awful and terrible. And I said, no, it wasn't. The optics were excellent, and they did everything they meant to do. I have to admit, can I go on an old man rant for just a second, Ted? Because I think you feel the same way. I broke my heart, and I know the Democrats are going to have like a Zoom version of the roll call. And the Republicans had the roll call during the day, out of prime time.
Right.
And I really like the roll call. I
I
like
like
it when
I like the roll call.
Alabama, the great state of Alabama, home to racism, and the Ku Klux Klan proudly says 13 votes for our next president, Ted Rall. In the place, I love that shit. I
I
love
like
it.
it too. I like it.
But they got rid of it. And so that kind of broke my heart. But I understand it because the networks only gave them a finite amount of time for prime time
Yeah.
coverage of the conventions. And so they did other things. And I mean, the first night was on Unity. I mean, who thought they could pull that off? And if you watched it, if you didn't come at it with a real, I mean, I hate both parties now. It's with a passion of a white hot sun. So I can't, so we can be objective because our disdain extends to everybody.
Totally.
And watching it just as someone who loves politics going, this was a successful night. They had a lot of brown and black faces speaking. It was really a good night. And Trump showed up in the hall and the place goes crazy. He shows up with Vance.
He looked all somber and happy to be.
He did not look. That's what I want to go into and do what we do best. And that's the analytics on the Vance and the Trump speech. And then we'll go on to talk about where the Democrats are. The Vance speech I thought was awful. Just because it was so disingenuous and showed this guy will say and do anything. And I do mean anything.
And I know that about him. You know, I remember, and I want to be clear here for all of our liberal listeners and viewers here. This JD Vance is the fault of liberal media. If it wasn't for NPR and the New York Times, he would be a nobody. They made him somebody because his book came out during the first Trump campaign, 2016, and it was touted by liberal media like, if you're wondering where this comes from, you have to read this book. Hillbilly Elegy will explain why middle America is so angry and why they're going right-wing populist for Trump. And he was supposed to be like the oracle, the person who could explain flyover country to the NPR, tote bag crowd. And the thing is, they made him, and then he pretended, he posited himself as sort of a centrist, moderate, might be a little Democratic, might be a little Republican, kind of like a Colin Powell politically. Who really knows? Wise man, not that political, Eisenhower. And then as soon as he saw the writing on the wall, he's like, I'm moving back to Ohio. I'm getting into politics. He presents himself as like, oh, I've always been from Ohio, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. This would be like me moving back to Ohio. I left Ohio when I was 18 years old. I've been back many, many, many times, but it's like I haven't lived there since I was 18. And it's like, that's what he did. And then and it's sort of semi-carpetbagging to run for political office a year and a half after you move back. But that's what he did. He won the Senate seat in a 7-way Republican primary. And he was obviously a smooth operator. He's very smart. But he didn't pivot. He ran full right into MAGA world. And that he's this guy, like I always say this about people like this. If Ted Rall's communist revolution comes tomorrow, he'll be wearing a Vladimir Lenin shirt, and he'll be he'll be singing the Internationale. He'll have a hammer and sickle badge on his jacket, and he'll always be talking about how he always loved socialism, and he will fight for the dictatorship of the proletariat. I mean, that's who this guy is. He will absolutely say and do anything that will get him ahead.
And if the fall election goes as I suspect, and Ted and I both suspect it will, and Donald Trump is returned to the White House, God save us all, Donald Trump looked awful. He looks like he's put on a lot of weight. I think he
had gotten shot a couple of days.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying that you can't gain weight in 2 days. It's I guess you could.
That sweet hospital food.
He just looked, and he's been looking. And I said this about Biden years ago. I said, watch him. His cognitive skills are slipping. There's something physically wrong with Donald Trump. He gets elected, and I think he'll be dead within 18 months of being reelected. Now you have Vance, President Vance, and you have a guy who believes in nothing.
Right.
Literally believes in nothing.
Right.
And he's going to be expected to lead the country, and a guy who doesn't believe in anything, it'll be a catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, look
Because
at,
if
for example, on Ukraine, he's like, "Oh, I don't care what happens to Ukraine," and then he does a he gets a call from Zelensky. Zelensky comes away and basically like, "Oh, we're good. He's going to totally take care of us, just like usual. We won't lose anything if he becomes the man."
right.
I mean, I thought, wow, that's a radical transformation in a very short time.
Yeah, this guy can turn on a dime. It's stunning, and it's dangerous for leadership. I mean, you have to believe and have a core set,
Or
a
pretend to
set of
have a
core.
set of beliefs. Yeah.
I think the good leaders do. The ones who don't aren't. I think Bill Clinton is a good example of someone who never had true core beliefs other than he wanted to be president. That was his core
Right.
belief.
Obama.
Obama's the same way. And I mean, both those presidencies were really mediocre. They weren't catastrophes, but they could have been so much more, especially Obama's. Um, so going through the nights, the family, the Trump family speaks, and in fact, his daughter-in-law was shockingly eloquent, I thought, and very, very good speech. Um, I know I get so much hell, Ted, from the
The
left.
Kimberly Guilfoyle stuff, though. Woo.
Oh, well, she's nuts. She a little cray cray,
Yeah.
just as my people say.
Yeah.
Um, so then Thursday night we have the speech by Donald Trump, and you're right. People tuned in to see him, see how he looked. I mean, he walked over to. They had the firefighter gear from the firefighter who
Mm.
was killed at the rally, and he walks over to it and pats it on the shoulder, and it was a good moment. But he walks over there, and then he walks back to the microphone. Ted, it's 10 steps if it's one, and that's it, and he's out of breath. I'm going, oh, he's in really bad shape. He's not just in bad shape, he's in very bad shape physically. And so I think he'll come out of this convention, and I've said this on your radio show. I think he'll come out with a 10 to 12 point lead over Joe Biden.
I mean, there are some early polling that shows that he's gotten a post-convention bump of about 3 points, but it
He
has
was up by 6. So
things haven't sorted themselves out. Yes, that would
yeah,
make him up
wait till
by
next
9.
week, because he was on message. He showed some discipline until he went off message, but no one was watching.
and and
But
and he cleverly excised all the really extremist shit that you normally see at an RNC. I mean, think about, like, there were no Pat Buchanan moments, right? No cultural
no,
war thing. I mean, the most extreme, that there were like 2 references that I counted to, like, the Democratic Party can't admit that there's only two sexes, but there was no gay bashing. There was no mention about a pro-life stuff. They were like, we're just returning this to.
oh, they just totally ignored that.
They sanitized their message. They definitely talked about the immigration stuff. They got rid of a lot of the sort of Fox News jargon that you hear, like the deep state and stuff like that. They didn't talk much like that. The word lawfare didn't come up. They described it, but they didn't use those terms. So look, Trump's coming out giving that speech in front of that Elvis like sign that said
Oh my
Trump.
God, that was so
Brilliant.
weird, but it works.
Brilliant.
And look who introduces him. He has Hulk Hogan, Kid Rock, the president of the Ultimate Fighting Congress, or whatever the hell it's called. And all you called it the tote bag crowd was aghast. What is that? That's not statesman. I mean, but
That's entertainment, man.
that's entertainment, exactly. And so then Trump comes out with the Elvis live from Hawaii. It was a good solid moment, and I just I did a cartoon based on the Democrat response to that, which is I have like 3 really blue collar guys with the vests, the day glow vests on, and their hard hats, and on the hard hats one guy says Kid Rock, or it says, hey, UFC, and the other one says WWE, and there's a very guy with a donkey and a salmon colored blazer with a white wine saying, so is everyone excited about the opening season for the new professional cricket league? They don't get it. And that's where, I mean, nothing has shown the end of the Democratic Party as in the old New Deal coalition has ended. And like like the convention did for the Republicans. The dynamics and the structure of politics in this country is forever changed. And, George Wallace, if he were running today, would be a Republican, as his
Right.
son is here, George Wallace Jr. Um, it's this has been a sea change that we haven't seen in this country since the 1930s,
No, I
when the
agree with you. This is a realignment, a radical realignment, which I think we should explain what those are, right? But
yeah,
like sort of what it basically means is that the shorthand of the way that parties are identified changes. It shifts in a realignment. So, like when I was a kid, my mom explained the two parties as follows: the Democrats are the party of the average Joe Sixpack, Jane Sixpack, working class, and the poor, and the Republicans, as she explained it to me in the '70s, were the party of big business and the wealthy, and that was certainly true at that time. And it has changed and changed and changed, and you can't say that now. I mean, Democrats starting in the '90s started to go after the corporate donations and the alliances with the wealthy, particularly the nouveau riche, like big tech and Hollywood and those kind of companies. And Bernie Sanders has written some pretty eloquent critiques of that. But anyway, they went for the big donors. So as a consequence, the educational attainment and the average income of an average Democratic voter is now higher than that of an average Republican voter. That was not the way it used to be.
yeah, yeah.
The Democrats are now the party of more educated coastal elites.
Oh, that's what I just wrote down.
And the left behind, and Republicans are now the party of small business more, and sort of less educated, but not uneducated by any means, more working class,
Yeah,
and union workers, and such as they are, right? I mean, it's a dramatic, and the nature of the politics of these parties has shifted. I mean, even though Democrats, for example, always had a certain quiet love for war, as we saw for Vietnam and with LBJ, but they were considered like more skeptical of foreign adventurism than Republicans. Republicans, I think, epitomized by Bush and Cheney, were the party of aggressive militarism. Now I would say that that's a radical change. Trumpism is more skeptical of foreign adventure, of militarism. Democrats are more aggressive. It's not like, yeah, and it's just like it's weird. I'm trying to think what other realignments have we seen. I mean, well, populism is
yeah.
now is belongs to the Republicans
Yes,
completely.
it used to be. Yeah, it used to be a Democrat thing. Now it's a Republican thing.
Mm-hmm. Bernie Sanders was the last hurrah of Democratic populism.
Yeah, which is, I mean, so what the hell are they, if you think about it? I mean, are they a statist, the Democrats? Are they I mean, because the Republicans remain still loyal to their part of their base, which is the wealthy. They're going, I mean, part of the Republican platform still calls for more tax cuts for the wealthy.
Right.
Um,
That's a contradiction, right? I mean, it's a contradiction if you think that, like Thomas Frank, what's the matter with Kansas, that voters can or do or should vote along with their parochial socioeconomic self-interest. I don't think they do.
mm,
People think they do or they should. And the argument I always make, like, well, why are poor people voting for rich people to save more on their taxes? I'm like, well, the same reason that rich Democrats vote for themselves to pay higher taxes, right? They want to, it's against their own interests, right? It's their values. Republicans are voting because they think that they have been convinced that trickle-down economics is real, that entrepreneurs need more capital to invest, and that's what drives job creation and all that. And liberals don't believe that at all, and so they vote against their own parochial self-interest. They just don't. And so but there are major contradictions in the current alignment. I mean, maybe more
Oh,
so than in the past. There always were, but
yeah.
there are. And I think that's part of what the underlying crisis is. Neither of these parties really makes a lot of sense. When you ask, what are the Democrats? It's like, well, what? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. And I also kind of don't really know what the Republicans are. Democrats are probably right in that it's a cult of Trumpian personality right now.
Yes.
Problem that Trump is trying to resolve by now. He's rolling up his sleeves and trying to recruit people like Vance to become, MAGA 2.0.
Well, and just look at his appointments to the Supreme Court. He picked young people, relatively young people, to be his nominees because they're going to be on the court for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he knows this. So all the people who are like, he's stupid. He's not thinking about.
He's not stupid.
He's not thinking as a statesman. He's now positioning himself to have a Trump legacy.
Correct.
Which I find astounding because, again, that seems to run contrary to what you think of this guy, because he's the here now, right? He's the let's have sex with the porn star now. Damn the repercussions or the consequences. Now. Yeah.
And so when he was fucking Stormy Daniels, that was what 2010 or something like that. So that's a long time ago. You're a different person when you're 78 than when you were 62,
Right. So the recklessness may go aside. I think the assassination attempt seems to have had some changes on him. He still says stupid, weird stuff. But that's so now going forward, now we have the Democrats, such as they are.
Indeed.
And I would let me just state where my thinking is today, Ted, because it changes. It's been, but the 48 hours, 12 hours prior to now, the 48 hours of that, I thought, okay, he's leaving. They're setting the table. They're opening the door. They're warming up the band for his exit music. But the comments from him now, as he recovers from COVID, is that he's not going anywhere. Ted, it gives me hope that sticking to my premonition, that he will not step down and he will be the nominee. The Democratic Party did something interesting, which got very little coverage, which they did delay by a week, the virtual roll call. That tells you something, that people in the Democratic Party are going, this isn't just some bullshittery. This isn't just piling on. This isn't some media frenzy. This guy's in trouble. They found us out. Now, I also think that after this election, there has to be some kind of hearings to look into who covered this up, because Ted, you've said it better than anyone I know.
James Comer of the House Oversight Committee has already announced that he plans to investigate this, and he's right. And they should get to it right away.
Bring Jill Biden in, bring Hunter in, bring them all in, bring in the inner circle and say, when did you know? What did you know? When did you know? Including Vice President Harris, because when did she know? Yeah. And if she was, because she's been walled off from the president now for, it sounds like, for months and months and months and months and months, because they've cloistered him more and more, because I can see and I can hear, as a land-based mammal, I have these senses. And I saw him, and I would mention this to Ted, who agreed with me, was one of the only people who agreed with me. Anytime I was on talk radio, anytime I was being interviewed by anybody, I would mention this, and I would be yelled at. How dare you?
Well, they would all say, like, what are you, a gerontologist? Are you a doctor? How do you know? And like, so, I'm obviously, you and I both have been giving a lot of thought to this. Look, I'm just going to go back and say 99%, if you didn't think he was senile 4 years ago, you're a fucking idiot, because it was plain as day for anyone to see. And if you judged that by like, oh, look, he could read a speech, then you're a fucking idiot. And we told you were a fucking idiot, and you were a fucking idiot, and you were wrong. And maybe you should never vote or express any opinion or choose food or anything. Like, you should just kill yourself now. But the point is that, like, in terms
of, find an ice flow, but there aren't any left. So
yeah, that's right. And like, the thing is, the only people, and I'm going to say, like, the 0.0001, you people are off the hook if you've never seen a senile person before, you've never met one, you didn't have any old relatives, you're ageist young person, millennial, Gen Z person, and you did not know any old people. Okay, you guys are off the hook. You didn't know. You're like, he's just old. Okay, you people, no problem. But the rest of you are fools. I mean, and like, it was just like I think, you know what I really think, Scott? I think most people don't really ever watch the news. I don't think most people watch Biden give a press conference. I don't think they watched him. I don't think they're observant. I don't think most people really pay attention to politics at all. And I think that they literally were expressing opinions based on shit that they were just sort of experiencing in some kind of tangential, peripheral way. The way that I always bring up this analogy, the way I experience sports. Like, I don't watch sports, I don't read about sports. It's not like I hate it, but just by living in the world, I may hear people say, like, who's playing, and oh, the so and so are playing this weekend, or big game tonight, or there's a big boxing match tonight, and I'll hear about it, right? But like, or you'll hear, oh, the Tour de France is this week, but it's like, but I'm not paying attention, right? So I wouldn't be able to say, like, oh, you could totally tell that cyclist was juicing, right? I don't know. I think that's how most Americans experience politics. They're not really paying attention the way. And then, unlike sports, like if I walked into a sports bar and started making shit up about this team or that player or whatever, people would be like, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. And they'd be right. But in politics, you're allowed to not pay attention and not read, like, diligently and be a informed citizen, which is your choice. But then you're still allowed to vote. I don't know why. And you're still allowed to like express opinions. And it's like everyone's entitled to their opinion. No, you're not. If you don't watch this shit, you're not entitled to any opinion. You're not like, I remember you brought up Bob Dole early in the pod. He criticized some movie. He'd never seen the movie. Fuck you, Bob Dole. Like, don't talk about movies you haven't seen.
That should be the name of this podcast. We may change the name of this podcast to that. Fuck you, Bob Dole.
and even though we do feel sorry for him and the moment and the long pain that he had lying in the mud in the Po Valley, injured, possibly mortally, and his service to the country. But I mean, really, truly, it pisses me off. Obviously, you can tell. I mean, because it's like, and I think there should be some sort of reckoning at some point for ordinary people who claim, even now, like, most people I've met who say, it's just one debate performance. Did you watch it? Oh, no. Oh, if only there was a device that you could turn to that would allow you to watch things like that. I mean, come on, like, you didn't watch it. Shut the fuck up. Let those of us who are adults who did watch it, let us talk. You stand and listen. You sit in the corner and listen and take notes.
But here's the thing. I mean, and this is important and salient, and really does come to the heart of what you and I do for a living. And that's to be trained observers, we look for, especially because we're also artists, we look for things that most people probably don't watch. I mean, you're right. People don't watch the news critically, but I would watch
or at all.
Well, they watch the evening news. That's which is weird. It's still the main source of news for Americans.
Yeah.
That's bizarre to me. But the first year of the Biden administration, he walked out and did the Mr. Burns walk, the elbows and the limp wrists, and walk like this. Finally, after a few months, someone said, "Sir, that's a really bad look." But then you'd notice that he had to have someone walk him out, someone walk him back, someone help him sit down and stand up.
2 years ago, there was that moment when he called out for the dead lady who had, he knew he was supposed to know that she had died. He called the family.
No, he mentioned that she died earlier, like
he attended
2 paragraphs before.
Yeah. He knew she was dead and he called out for her. I'm sorry. That's not stuttering. Okay.
I love that. Yeah. The stuttering excuse. He was showing significant cognitive issues during the campaign. 2020, he was able to hide most of them because of the COVID and because of the shutdowns. But if you watched,
everything was scripted, every single fucking thing.
well, it turns out it was when he'd go into if he went to a group setting in the White House, they had teleprompters set up
Private
for him.
homes, when he had meetings
Yeah.
with fundraisers with 20 or 30 wealthy donors who, basically the deal is you pay $500,000, you get to shoot the shit with the president of the United States. And it's all like off the record and no one's recording anything. He'd walk in, read off a teleprompter for like 6 minutes and then shuffle off and leave. And the donors were pissed. They're like, that's not what I paid for.
Yeah. And you and I read about these instances. We watched the few times when he was in public. We watched the very few times when he was off script. And we're going, that guy's senile, because we both have dealt with parental units who have gone through that. It's hard. It's difficult. But we recognize the signs.
We don't know what kind it is, right? We just know there are many forms of senility.
Yes.
Many forms of dementia. There's any number of diseases that present as dementia. Alzheimer's is merely one of a numerous different kinds, although the most common form of dementia. I don't think he probably has Alzheimer's.
I don't either.
But the point is that something's up and he's not being straight with us, and they haven't been straight with us at all. So anyway, you were saying so finally they're aware. The political class is now aware of what's going on.
And by the way, just a side note, Ted and I are really pissed off about this because we've been saying this, fuck this shit for 3.5 fucking years.
Yeah.
And we took so much shit.
And they shivved Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and the rest of them to put him in.
Yes. So there's a conspiracy. That's why I'm saying, and I'm not one to say we need hearings on this. This is one of those we need hearings because frankly, and then we're going to look forward, but I just want to mention this. If we're looking at what we're pretty sure we're all looking at now, and that is the, inner circle taking over and running the country. That is a coup d'etat. Those people are traitors.
Yeah.
And they need to be treated as traitors. And that includes, I'm looking at you, Joe Biden.
Agreed.
To keep someone and to protect someone. She's the 21st century answer to Edith Wilson, who was the wife of President Wilson when he had his strokes and was incapacitated. She ran the country. No one voted for her.
You could argue, Reagan, his last 2 years, he was off. But, this isn't something that, like we said, this was from the start. This is the entire administration. This isn't like the president comes in, and this would, by the way, it would be inexcusable as far as I'm concerned if the president suffered some kind of cognitive setback a week before the end of his term and he's leaving office and they don't tell us. They have to tell us. But this isn't like that. I mean, you could say, well, it's a rounding error. Let's just fucking finish this out. But that's not true here. I mean, this is the entire time.
Right. And this is traitorism. So let's look forward to the coming weeks, Ted. You are still of a mind that President Biden will step down as the candidate.
I think he has to step down because there's credible reports, not denied, that Nancy Pelosi, Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, Charles Schumer, all the big people, these are really the people who make the men and women who make the decision. And they have all told people off the record that and they've told Biden personally that he's going to lose. They prefer that he step aside. And he's got it. I think at this point, we're only talking they're currently negotiating how to do it. How will there be an announcement? Does he get to finish his term? What becomes the role of Vice President Harris? Does he endorse Harris? I think it's he's leaving. He's negotiating his post-nup at this point.
And maybe that's what I'm hearing, and because I predicted, and I'm going to adhere to it, that he's going to be the nominee. I mean, the clock's running out. The Dems won't have a choice.
And I was thinking, Scott, we talked about the 25th Amendment. Yeah. That's not really a viable option here. And I realized why. Because he remained, if Harris and 11 cabinet members decide to vote to remove him as president, he remains president. He's just not acting president. Harris becomes acting president, but it doesn't solve anything because he's still on the fucking ballot. Yeah. And he's still the Democratic nominee. I mean, look, if he fell into a Terry Schiavo coma, right now, or like, he's Christopher Walken in the Dead Zone, 5.5 years gone. Maybe he comes back with super like cognitive powers. He, um, there's literally no way to address this. He's on the ballot. He's the president. He could be reelected as a vegetable. I mean, it's like, that's literally true. The 25th doesn't address this if the fucker refuses to leave. It just removes him, but it doesn't put a new name on the ballot, which is what you need. The only solution would be to impeach him and convict him in the Senate. And for that, you have to get the House. You have to get House Republicans to help the Democrats get rid of the Democrats' weakest possible candidate against Trump. And why would the Republicans want to do that? So,
yeah, and it's just not enough time anyway. There really isn't, unless you do the impeachment shuffle.
Remember they did a El Rapido one for the second time for Trump after January.
Well, it reminds me. I mean, if he's the nominee, it reminds me of do you remember the Senate race, the gubernatorial race down in Louisiana when it was against David Duke, and Edwards, who'd been had been convicted of crimes, bribery and such, and it says vote for the felon, it's important. Where the bumper store says vote for the vegetable, it's important. Yeah, but okay, so I'm going to go with my prediction, and I still think it holds true. I don't think it sounded to me, the utterances from this White House, which may be a negotiating tool. I talked to a friend of mine who's a venture capitalist out in California. He said the guy's negotiating. That's how you negotiate. That's how these guys get golden parachutes. They say, Ted, Rall Co. needs to go in a different direction. You need to go. And you go, no, I'm not leaving. We're willing to offer you $100. And you go, I'm not leaving. We're willing to offer you $500,000. I'm not going anywhere. We're willing to offer you $50 million in the beach house.
Bye.
Let's talk. That's maybe what's going on here. But let's go with your scenario right now and say that, they get to him, and it's going to have to be this week. It has to be. If it doesn't happen by Friday, it's over, because they're going to have the virtual roll call next. They can't postpone it anymore.
That's it.
Then it's him. That's it.
Unless of course it is a party. The party can change the rules. I mean, the party can just they can do whatever they want. They can say, whoever brings the most donuts to the convention is the nominee.
But practically, that's not going to happen.
Right.
We've talked about it's going to be Harris, because the part of the woke party that of racial identity party is not going to fire the woman of color. They're just not going to mention
it would open up a civil war within the party to open it up, because it's like they're all talking, the corporatists in the party are talking, we would have former presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama officiate this sort of reality TV type contest. They would choose who gets to be, like, they would choose, and they're both from the corporate wing of the party. That's like not going to go for the progressives.
A lot of the Looney Tune right I see on X are saying it's going to be Hillary again. Mark our words.
No, they're terrified, and the progressives are terrified of her too. But no, it's not.
So it's going to be Harris, and now I thought a Harris Whitmer ticket would be fascinating.
Nah, you can't have two women.
Why not?
I mean, look,
you have two white guys.
We've had two men over and over and over. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it won't play.
That'll be a huge.
She's a white guy.
You say that, but I'm not.
If asked, I will not run.
The Harris Rall ticket.
Now Clovis says Clovis has been negotiating.
Is he? I thought he was angling for a cabinet position.
No, he wants to be vice president, but then if I were Kamala, I wouldn't choose him, because she probably wouldn't be long for this world.
Rahm Emanuel was
there's Clovis causes accident.
A friend of Rahm Emanuel's was talking to him, and Rahm Emanuel was angling for a cabinet position. He says, because it's the easiest job in the world.
Yeah, you can work as hard. You can show up for 6 months.
Yeah, it's as easy or as hard as you want it to be. There are no rules. Which I found stunning. Okay, so going forward, Harris picks some really mamby-pamby, boring white guy.
Yeah, he's gonna.
Here's the danger. Hillary did that in 20.
For Jay Shapiro, someone like that, or the guy from Kentucky, Bashir, someone like she needs a Tim Kaine type choice, like
But
really
that was a terrible
boring,
choice.
not in the way, doesn't like overshadow her. She can't go for a star like Gavin Newsom. There's no way.
Well, Newsom doesn't I mean, what does Newsom bring? You're going to win California anyway. And he ran his state into the ground. He's a shitty,
Yeah,
terrible
he
candidate.
brings hair power.
Yes, he brings the power of hair products.
And
Yeah,
at this age, I respect hair power.
he really does. I mean, I think he views himself as the next president of the United States. I'm going,
Yes.
you're going to run, are you going to run on your record? Because if that's the case, don't book the moving vans.
Well, and they're both from California, so there is that possible.
Well, she's from DC now. I would imagine she's a resident of DC.
Yeah, I would imagine.
That's why Trump didn't pick Rubio, is because Trump would have had to
Move.
Now, what's the law, the constitutional law that if they're both from the same state, the electors from that state can't vote for them? It's some kind of weird, convoluted weirdness that.
Yeah. Although it's
Okay.
not really been tested legally. And there's the question of the money too, right? Like right now, Democrats are assuming that if Harris is the replacement, that she'll be able to tap into all that sweet Biden Harris money. But Republicans are signaling that they might challenge that in court, because we don't really know that to be true.
Yeah, that's money's fungible. I mean, yeah, they could take it. What they could do, and if I was a Republican, I'd do it. I take it to court.
Tie them up.
Yeah, tie it up, because it's a lot. It's 100 million or something, right?
Yeah.
It's a ton of money.
Just to fuck with them.
Does Harris, I haven't seen her extemporaneous lately. I've seen her on script and she's doing better. I've seen some interviews. But she just has that Hillary vibe, man. I mean,
she does. No, she's extremely grating. She's annoying. She has this sense like she thinks everyone's stupid. Though her delivery style is like, you're dumb, so I'm going to speak slowly and use short words for you. And she has a kind of like bad school marm, or like when people talk to kids and they don't maybe have kids, and they talk to their kids like they're stupid, like to children like they're dumb. That's how she talks to.
Yeah, I think I mean, that's something you can fix.
Yeah, this is a media training issue.
And frankly, the American people don't know her that well. So you really have a golden opportunity to.
She can do a total reboot.
I mean, look at Vance changes, in the span of 12 hours can change his position. She can do that too and change the way she.
True.
But
and by the way, her positioning, she's already been successfully pivoting toward the progressive wing of the party. Like, for example, she's been the point person to call Netanyahu and say, like, cut the shit in the administration. So,
well, then, so if Biden were to resign from office and make her president, which really would give her by far a huge advantage.
And that's the right move, because look, if he steps aside because he can't campaign, Republicans and people like me and maybe you are going to say, if you can't campaign, how can you govern?
Exactly, because campaigning,
and that's a good question, right?
Because campaigning, you don't have to make decisions. You walk to the podium, you read the speech, you wave like a dancing monkey, and you leave.
Up to that, like, how can? Yeah, I don't get it. So he should resign, really. But I know he doesn't want to be mentioned in the same breath as Richard Nixon. Like, only 2 American presidents have ever resigned. Yeah. He doesn't want to be that person, and I don't blame him. Frankly, I think that ship has sailed. I think if he had bailed a month ago, that would have been no problem.
2 years ago. I'm sorry.
He's dragging his feet. Yeah, I mean,
I'm a bitter old guy. 2 years ago, he should have said, I saved the country from the scourge of Donald Trump.
Immediately after the midterms. He should have said that. Yeah.
And everyone expected him to.
And then he should have said, and Vice President Harris already has been doing a lot behind the scenes, but she's going to have a far more public face. She's going to be side by side with me on everything. That's what he should have.
And I would have pictures every day coming from the White House of Harris in the Oval Office, talking to President Biden, talking to the Joint Chiefs.
Side. Yeah. Cheek to cheek. That's how they should have been. Elbow to elbow.
And so, but now that I think you're right. I think about resigning the office, you're absolutely right. So he's going to step down as a candidate. If he does that, it's Harris.
But then she's the candidate. And for sure.
And a boring white guy as a running mate.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, that's interesting. I still think it's a risk, but Whitmer gets.
And so if you're, but she needs, if she look, she's, the odds are really against her, but for a variety of reasons. She's not a great candidate. She's also coming in basically with no time, right? She can certainly gin up. There will be a lot of interest in her. The media will give her lots of attention.
Yes.
They will.
Yeah.
They'll be in the tank for her too, because all the Democratic media will want this to work, and they'll be
Yes.
like, "We're making history. She's a woman of color." Blah blah blah. That stuff's exciting. And but I think the only way she gets across the finish line is with a set of awesome policy prescriptions. It's the only way. She's got to address some of the shit that the Republicans are talking about, like high prices and the border.
Yes. Yes.
And she's got to like take that wind out of their sails. And she's got to go everywhere, but she's also got to have some smart stuff that would appeal to everybody, like a healthcare, an improvement on Obamacare, a credible, and stuff like I've been proposing for years, a federal jobs retraining program. So, not if you're 64 and you get fired from a job, but like if you're 50 and you lose your job in flyover country, you can go to trade school or college, and it's all subsidized by the federal government in order to help you retool for a new industry.
And I think expanding technical colleges, for instance, don't
That's a good idea. No, that's a very good idea.
Oh, there's the enrollment at technical colleges in the United States over the last 4 years has gone up 300%, because I can go to college, get way into debt, and get a job that pays $70,000 a year, or I can weld and make $200,000 a year,
right. And not have those debts. Yeah, and
not have the debts, and it's you still have the lifestyle which I want to live. She could do that, I think. Yeah, I would embrace, and I would go full if I was.
I'd go isolationist too.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That's where the public is.
I'm an isolationist.
The voters are isolationists.
I am. So I'm like an old line Republican isolationist. I would have been one of the Republicans on December 6th.
Ukraine, pull out of Israel, pull out.
On December 6th, 1941. I would have been giving a speech saying America should stay out of the Pacific and Atlantic wars. They're just a drain. We have plenty of resources to be Fortress America.
I would have been the same. I don't think any of this shit is our business.
And do you want to, here's how you couch it. Do you want to put your child on the altar of this war? Sacrifice your child? And
why are American citizens who are addicted to opioids unable to go to rehab because they can't afford it? People who are like, I'm ready for rehab. I want to get better, but I don't have the money to do that. And then meanwhile, we're sending billions of dollars to corrupt regimes like Zelensky's.
Yeah. Well, they can't have, elections there, Ted. But they're still a democracy. Just because they don't have elections doesn't mean they're not a democracy.
It's a very special kind of democracy. The kind without elections.
So, okay. Political parties. Coming out of the Democratic convention, you have Harris for president, Plato, some kind of dull Plato beige candidate, running mate.
Yeah.
Does she have a chance? Anyone has a chance. It seems volatile.
Yeah, she has a chance. Here's why she has a chance. She has a chance because 45% of Americans will vote for a Democrat if it's a rutabaga, and 45% of Americans will vote for a Republican if it's a rutabaga. And so what you need to do is convince those people in the middle that you're less bad than the other person.
Right.
It's not impossible. She can do that. Or let me put it this way: a person can do that. I don't know if she can do it, but
if Trump's cognitive abilities continue to slide, that becomes the issue now. All of a sudden, that white hot spotlight.
Imagine if somehow Bernie Sanders were vice president right now, and he was stepping forward. But let's just say he was 6 years younger, right? Who doubts that he would win?
What if he's the candidate, the presidential candidate?
2016 Bernie was currently the stepped in right now as the Democratic nominee.
Oh, I don't think he'd win. I think that they would
I
paint
think he
him
would
as a
destroy Trump.
I don't think so, but we're never going to know. But
the point is, I think the reason I bring that up is to say there are people who could do this. So the question is, is she that person?
Actually, I think the person who could do it is Secretary Buttigieg, who has done a very good job as Secretary of Treasury. He really has.
Transportation.
Transportation, sorry.
But do you think the gay thing would be a problem?
It's huge. We're not going to elect a male president who has a husband. We're not ready for that yet.
I think they will, but not him, because he's short and kind of like stereotypically gay looking. You know what I mean? Like if it's a guy who, like if it's a Rock Hudson guy who is gay, but doesn't look and sound gay.
Well, Chase Oliver, who's the presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party, is gay, openly gay, and young, but looks, dresses amazingly. And just looks fantastic. Looks amazing. Yeah, but he doesn't look. You're right. You may be right, but I just think too, Buttigieg is just the country's not ready yet. We'll get there. I think we're close, but we're not there.
I think
yet.
We're very close. Yeah.
I
think we can have a gay or maybe even a lesbian president soon, but that person will have to, like, they can't be like, if it's a lesbian, she can't be butch, like we could have President Jodie Foster. No problem.
And what does John Hinckley do then? That's a conundrum right there.
Then he has to shoot her to impress Reagan.
I just think it's weird that they released him. I mean, maybe he's medicated and he's, they fix whatever was wrong, but that just scares the shit out of me.
I know.
Sirhan is out on the streets. I mean,
I do not like those two facts. Yeah.
No, I don't sleep better, but your friend, Joe Biden finally after the assassination attempt on Trump, finally extended Secret Service protection for RFK Jr.
Yes. That was mighty white of him, as they used to say.
God. So what a dick move.
Asshole. What an asshole.
Yeah. With those initials, that name. Yes. I think RFK, but by the way, did you see someone else was recording RFK Jr. talking to Trump?
Yes.
Is Trump 8 years old? Can you drop out of the race and endorse me? That would be great. If you could do that, I'd like that very much. Donald would love that.
Actually, it's pretty smart though, because even the fact that it got out, to me, it shows like, man, Trump's a smooth operator. He works all the angles. Look at him.
Well, he went to the Libertarian Party convention, got booed off the stage.
Fucking
but he
smart. I like it. I like the fact that Trump's willing to do that shit. To me, he gets respect from me for that.
It shows a level of courage and it shows some chutzpah. I mean, you got to respect that. You really do. No, here's the thing. What happens with Harris if they don't hold her back? And the temptation, I mean, I'm thinking of Gore in 2000, who just was so reined in that he couldn't be the Al Gore that I knew as a member of the editorial board at the Commercial Appeal in Memphis. We saw Senator Gore come in, who was, very, very in touch with the facts, but also very charming, funny, lucid, versus that tight ass thing that, became Al Gore. You would hope that, I think Harris could become that, pardon me, that same thing.
Well, I mean, look, honestly, there's this lesson has been taught over and over in politics, authenticity or the simulacrum thereof is it's going to work. I mean, people think that Trump is authentic. They like that. Relaxed, chill, jokey, funny, random.
They have to unleash Kamala is really.
Yeah, and we don't know. Maybe I don't know if it'll work. What do you think?
I don't know what she's like. I really don't know what she's like behind closed doors. Talking to friends in California in political circles, this is allegorical. So it's not, it's just talking to people. There's nothing to quantify this. None of them liked her.
Okay.
No one, I've not talked to anyone in California political circles who said, yeah, behind closed doors, she's great.
That's what everyone says about Hillary Clinton. They say behind closed doors, she's great.
Yeah, well, open the doors, they were a friend of mine who did an event for Hillary said the same thing. Said she, when you see her face, she was in the green room with her, and just like one-on-one, she was really nice, asking questions. How are you? Where are you from? What do you do here? I'm not sure Harris, my fear, because I don't want Trump to be elected, but my fear is Harris is truly what you see. Going back to the top of our conversation here, talking about Biden, is she what you see? If she is, she's going to get her ass handed to her.
Agreed.
Yeah, or it's that simple. If there is no there, if she really is just an unpleasant human being who does not care about other human beings, can't win, cannot win, and that's I'm afraid that's where we are. The other thing this is a cartoonist / artist complaint, is that I really thought the Joe logo was good. I'm sorry to see that go. The E in the name Biden with the E as the flag, the three stripes. I thought, God, that's good. That's just solid, simple, identifiable. And I'm looking at Harris and there's no place to put it. So
Well,
Biden has, obviously Joe has an E and Biden has an E, but there's no E in Harris. Interesting. And
first of all, I wouldn't be surprised if, like Hillary, she goes by her first name on her campaign material.
I don't think
Harris
so.
is a really boring white guy's name.
That's why you go with it. Kamala, you didn't see Obama go with Barack.
No, but
you had the O logo.
But the thing is that they're going to want Kamala to be. Everyone calls her Kamala, right? I mean, that's what they call her. I mean, it's simple. I think is the way to go. I mean, it depends a lot on her running mate too.
And I think you have to have. I mean, again, folks. I mean, I know you may be thinking that we're away from policy, but this stuff matters too to us, because
Hillary's logo was very controversial. It helped turn off the progressive base of the Democratic Party because it had a red arrow embedded in the H, and the red arrow was pointing right. And the implication was, from the red and the arrow pointing right, was I'm a right winger, I'm a conservative. And I think that was a fair conclusion to draw based on her politics, and also based on the way that she snubbed the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, and the way she snubbed him personally. It was kind of just like another fuck you to the progressives.
Yeah, I remember that controversy. It was an okay logo. I didn't understand it, quite frankly. Like you said, it pointed to the right, which is like you're
I'm
the
sure
Democrat.
she would have said, "Oh, the designer was like, oh, we're moving forward with Hillary."
Oh, well, it pointed to the rest of the letters is what it was doing. The ILLARY. So it made sense to point that way. But just I didn't. And then remember, we went through that whole series of everybody having their logos.
Yes, like
and
Obama
that really
had a logo that looked like it was for like an organic farm.
Yes. Yeah. No. And then Romney's was this weird looking. I think it was supposed to be an R, but it just looked like 3 dead worms. It was terrible. But everybody started to have their own logos.
It was pretty bad. Yeah. Remember and Bush had a logo, right? He had the W with the flag embedded in it. The flag is like sort of one of the sides of the W is like the flagpole for the W.
Oh yeah. Well, W was, they just had the square stickers.
Yes. Yes.
W, the president, is what it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, but it sort of worked.
Yeah, but it's good. This coming week is going to, this is everything. This is the election coming up.
Agreed. All right. Well, with that, let's keep watching. And as soon as anything happens, we'll bring it to you here.
We'll pod for you, people.
We'll pod like a motherfucker.
That's us. That's the new name for that's still DMZ America podcast. So, Ted, before we go, where can we see all things Teddian?
Please go to rall.com, RALL.com. You can also check out whowhatwhy.org on weekends in particular, but it's a good website all week long. Also check out Center Clip, which is an app which Scott and I are both on, doing 30-second to 5-minute little micro podcasts. And you can also go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall. Sadly, no more comments over there because they're stupid. Scott,
Yes.
where can we see all things? Oh, and before I forget, please purchase my old new book, 2024 Revisited graphic novel. Buy it.
Color, drawings.
Color. Okay, Scott, where can we find all things Scottian?
You can go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis, see my editorial cartoons, no comments. You can go to gocomics.com/Prickly City to see my political comic strip, which weirdly you can comment on. You can go to the Chicago Tribune or chicagotribune.com/opinion, see my editorial cartoons. You can go to Dallas News, the news site for the Dallas Morning News, and go to their opinion section, see the work I draw for them. And now you can go to the Smirkonish. Yes, Michael Smirkonish, the host of the Saturday morning show on CNN, also a show on Sirius XM. I'm in his newsletter and posted to his website, smirkonish.com. And by the way, you didn't mention this, but Ted has a daily radio show. You can watch it on Rumble, or you can listen to it in DC, or you can stream it. It's an excellent radio show, and you really should listen to it because, well, Ted's really smart, I think. And so that's about it. Oh, yeah. And you already mentioned Center Clip, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that covers it, man. We did it all.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and see you either next week or sooner if and when the Republic collapses.
Why don't we just say late next week, because it's going to happen. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen late this coming week.
Tomorrow, man.
I don't think so. They're still making rumbles, and he's up in Delaware. He's going to do it from the White House. If you hear that the president has gone from his home in Delaware back to the White House Sunday,
yeah, then it's on.
Then it's on like Donkey Kong. Yeah, then it's over. So keep an eye out for that. And well, until then, peace.
Arrivederci.
Au revoir.
Yeah.